When the listening test is finished, you then move into the reading test. And the reading test takes 1 hour with no extra time for transferring your answers. In the reading test, there are 40 questions divided into 3 sections, and that means that in the academic reading paper there will be 3 reading passages. Now, they're not all the same difficulty and they're not on the same subject matter. Some of them may be familiar to you, some of them may be very strange. It's definitely worthwhile spending about a minute at the beginning of the reading test just looking through the paper very quickly, skimming through to check out which passage looks to be the most difficult and which one looks to be the easiest. And then, of course, do the easiest one first. You're given exactly 1 hour to answer all those 40 questions. No extra time for transferring your answers onto an answer sheet. So it's vital that as you complete each section of the reading paper, you then transfer your answers onto the answer sheet. It will be dreadful if you finished up the test with an empty answer sheet because you hadn't transferred anything. Keep an eye on the clock and transfer things as you go, section by section. Now, what about the kinds of questions in the reading test? Well, they're different between academic reading and general training reading. Let's look at the academic reading test first. And I'm going to take an example from this book, Cambridge Practice Tests for IELTS 3. And the first reading passage in here has 6 paragraphs labelled A to F. The title is The Rocket from East to West. And what you have to do for the first 4 questions is to choose the most suitable headings for paragraphs B, C, D and E from the list of headings given on the paper. And you have to write the appropriate number from 1 to 9 on the answer sheet. There are 9 headings, but you've only got to choose 4 of them to match the paragraphs B, C, D and E. They do give you 2 examples, so let's have a look at the first example. They suggest that paragraph A, which says this, the concept of the rocket, or rather the mechanism behind the idea of propelling an object into the air, has been around for well over 2,000 years. However, it wasn't until the discovery of the reaction principle, which was the key to space travel and so represents one of the great milestones in the history of scientific thought, that rocket technology was able to develop. Not only did it solve a problem that had intrigued man for ages, but more importantly, it literally opened the door to exploration of the universe. And if you scan through the list of headings, you can see that number 2 is the impact of the reaction principle. So that's clearly the answer to that one. Paragraph A, the answer is 2. Another kind of question that people find really difficult, really terrible, scaring, it gives them nightmares, is the yes, no, not given, or the true, false, not given questions. You write yes if the statement in the question reflects the claims of the writer, or no if the statement contradicts the claims of the writer, or not given if it's impossible to say what the writer thinks about this. So let's look at an example of a yes, no, not given question from reading test 1. The reading passage is all about the risks of cigarette smoke. And in paragraph 2, it says, in addition to being responsible for more than 85% of lung cancers, smoking is associated with cancers of, amongst others, the mouth, stomach and kidneys, and is thought to cause about 14% of leukemia and cervical cancers. In 1990, smoking caused more than 84,000 deaths, mainly resulting from such problems as pneumonia, bronchitis and influenza. Smoking, it is believed, is responsible for 30% of all deaths from cancer and clearly represents the most important preventable cause of cancer in countries like the United States today. Question 18 says, is it true or does it reflect the claims of the writer that 30% of deaths in the United States are caused by smoking-related diseases. Well, if you look back at the part where it mentions 30%, what it actually says is that smoking is believed to be responsible for 30% of all deaths from cancer, not all deaths categorically. So the answer to that question must clearly be no. I said before that the academic module is for people who wish to pursue further study in an English-speaking country, usually at a fairly high level, such as degree, undergraduate or postgraduate. The general training module is more for people who wish to emigrate and go and live in another country, or to finish off their secondary education if they're older than 16, or to take up vocational training in a country where, for example, something is available that's not available in their own country. So the general training reading questions are much more reflective of the kind of reading that people in those situations will have to do. They're not study passages, they're more life skills passages. And here's an example from General Training Reading Test B in Cambridge 3. The passage that I'm looking at talks about medicine. And there's a general description and then some instructions. And there's some yes, no, not given questions. Shock, horror. And question 1 says, does it agree with the passage if I say that you should lie down after you have taken the medicine? Well, looking quickly at the instructions, it says, do not take this medicine on an empty stomach or immediately before lying down. So clearly, the answer to question 1 is no. There's also lists of headings in general training, and there's also multiple choice questions as well. There are plenty of sample reading passages for you to practice with at home or in the library, and you can get lots of help from several people and guidance as to which passages are very useful. Don't forget, though, that it's sometimes a good idea to practice with reading passages from other tests, such as the TOEFL, such as the SAT 1 verbal section, or even, if you're going for a really high-level band, try the GMAT or CAE or even CPE.